KingofPodcasts.com proudly presents The Wrestling is Real Podcast, because wrestling needs us. Brought to you by KingofAmazon.com. KOP is all about Amazon, and so should you. Go to King of Podcasts' special link at KingofAmazon.com. Before we get started on the Wrestling is Real Podcast for another Wednesday night going into Thursday, which is about 24 hours or so removed from the presidential election, or the general elections here in the United States, for those of you that are overseas. Look, I know for some of you, like myself, you might be preoccupied with that. And I know that some of my podcast brethren, wrestling or otherwise, are probably talking about politics right now, because they can't help themselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just don't want to. I have my thoughts on what's going on. And it's not one way or the other, and I try to keep myself pretty apolitical. So, look, I want to go ahead and bring this show on and just say, listen, I understand if you're thinking about it and you're coming to this show to get your mind off of it. Well, that's what I'm here for. And it's going to start right now. So we're going to talk about AEW Full Gear coming up this weekend, this Saturday on pay-per-view. That's going to be fun because they really built out a really great show, AEW. And it'll give me a chance to take a break from WWE because we need to. You know, there's not much more to be said after coming out of Hell in a Cell and just where they're going with things with Survivor Series. Because right now we're at a point where Survivor Series is feeling pretty dead. I mean, I'm not interested in interbrand feuds and interbrand tag team matches. They should change the Survivor Series pay-per-view to something else, because right now it doesn't feel anything like it should be. They're just using the gimmick because it's what the gimmick is, but that pay-per-view doesn't mean anything like it used to. It doesn't. I mean, we see all these same voters, or these same wrestlers out there all the time that we're seeing on a regular basis, and there's really nothing where we're seeing any individual matches that really feel special or that are unique, but that's what WWE is doing right now. I'd actually prefer to kind of get my mind off of WWE for a little while, because it's just time to do that. So AEW, let's go ahead and look at what they've been doing with themselves so far. It's an interesting scenario when you think about it. I look at them, and AEW has a pretty good formula on what they're doing with their shows. It's pretty consistent. And I think overall, the makeup of what they're doing in their group has been pretty good so far. When you look at the card and you look at the people that they have, and the way they utilize their shows has been really consistent. And that's one thing they've learned. They've definitely got a consistent format now of what their shows are like. You definitely see how they try to do things where there are particular shows they're going to perform that they want to get a particular people on their shows to start off the night and end the night. So they definitely feel where Chris Jericho or John Moxley or Cody or others, there are a few people that they feel like they really want to have positioned that are draws. But then they are working on building new stars overall. Those new stars, absolutely, and they're young for the business. And talking about trying to build some veteran stars that you have that are prominent, you're seeing the building of some really new stars that are going to be in the forefront and can really take this company down a line for a long time. They're building out for the future. And the future is very bright with this brand because of how they're booking their stars. MJF is one. I mean, the fact that we saw him from MLW going into the day, and just the building up of him, I think his work right now with Chris Jericho has been really wonderful. Across the board, I like what MJF has done. When you look at what his career has been so far, the significance of him working with Cody, I think they did a pretty good job giving him not a very lengthy feud with John Moxley, but it was one of those transitional, that's the next guy up on the ladder for John Moxley to take on. I think they did a pretty good job with him, nevertheless. But with MJF, they did a really good job doing the heel turn with Cody. And this power grab of MJF joining Inner Circle, I enjoy that too. It's been working. And you can see that there are certain people that are being worked on as projects to try to move forward. Chris Jericho has been the best at looking to build younger stars and get them moving forward. Darby Allin you had early on. You had Jericho taking on Orange Cassidy in the latest feud, which was really good for Orange Cassidy. I thought they did a really good job with it. You see Matt Hardy working with Sammy Guevara, and Sammy Guevara looking like he's getting the heads up on it. He can actually, he's been growing a lot. And obviously there was something behind Sammy Guevara that everybody saw. And obviously with Chris Jericho aligning him with Inner Circle has really stood out. I think more than what Santana Ortiz have done. But Santana Ortiz have had their times, but not as much. But the Inner Circle has been a solid faction. And, they did a lot of stuff with Cody, and that worked out. That was not bad. And the Elite, they never really fully did the full thing with the Elite because they never got the blood and guts, but that's okay too. What I see now are, they are looking at the younger stars and they're building them up. Their mid-card is fantastic. It's one of the best. And I think they also do a really good job of putting a lot of different stars out there at a different time. It's definitely not the same people over and over. Not to me anyway. When I look at, there are certain stars they're going to have out there on a pretty consistent basis, but I think the building up has been good. When you look across the board. So Jon Moxley is a solid champion. And I think he has looked great in this company. Anything that would have been, that they could have done with Dean Ambrose wouldn't have worked. The Jon Moxley character is solid. He is likable. And he's tough. The different entrances all over the place. The impromptuousness of the character is good. And it feels like Jon Moxley is definitely the Dean Ambrose character amplified. I feel like we're starting to see Jonathan Good amplified to another level. It's not a Stone Cold Steve Austin moment, but it does feel like there's a little bit of something there. But, he's had pretty good runs with title runs. I haven't had much of an issue with that. I liked what he did with Chris Jericho, and I also liked, it wasn't much, but there were also some other opponents they gave him that, again, they're not putting out opponents that are consistently going to be in a long feud with him. They're really just short-term feuds, and he just kind of goes along the people on the roster, whether it's Brody Lee or whether it's MJF or whether it's the Murder Hawk or whatever. Like, they've gone after and had certain stars that don't necessarily get hurt, especially when he's the face and they're the heels. The heels will take the heat and take the losses, but the faces are being booked strong, and they're not being booked so stupid. Cody had his run looking to be world champion, but again, to kind of humble himself, he wants to not be what he's seen the other bookers of people before him. He doesn't want to be what Jerry Lawler was. He don't want to do what his daddy did. He wants to be a top guy, but he doesn't want to put himself out as the main guy because of the kind of nepotism that will be brought on, which I understand. That makes sense. Bill Watson the same way. It's like there's a thing there where he doesn't want to do that old school booking where you just take whatever it is. I mean, obviously Dustin's put in a prominent role. Cody's put in a very big role, and he is made to look like a big star. The TNT title he has built, and he has been defending very strongly, and he has very good matches on those TNT title matches, so nobody can say much about that either. And so they do a certain number of things where they are booking a number of stars to go after the TNT title, and when they are, they're getting good matches. They're getting their chances to kind of hang with the bigger star. When you see Scorpio Sky or Orange Cassidy or others, I mean, just saying, it does work out in that way. And obviously Cody couldn't be just dominant the whole time, so Brody Lee took that belt, and then Cody took it back. So what they're doing with Cody, they're keeping him strong and the TNT champion, it just, it's him holding a belt, and it is him trying to make the TNT title mean as much as the world title. It's kind of there. Like, the TNT title does feel a bit like the Intercontinental title at its highest peak. But again, they're not building that belt as the secondary that would lead to the main title holder. Not right now. Right now, they want Cody to be the face that can actually just go ahead and take on all comers, and that's the role he's going to be for now. Now, they've been doing a lot of stuff to try to break out the Elite and spread and really just divide and conquer. That's where the next couple of matches they have for Full Gear. You got Hangman Page and Kenny Omega. So the story culminates here where we've seen the long storyline being played out with the Bucks and the splitting off of the Elite altogether, and Hangman and Kenny Omega having their odds. And Kenny Omega now finding himself as the cleaner, as the heel. Which we always thought that he could have started off as a heel at first, but they decided for the sake of it, the Elite would be together initially and then split off. And Hangman Page, we already knew that that guy was destined for some good things because he did have a match when he got to go and take on Jericho early on in AEW's lifetime. And it was good. And his run as a tag team champion has been very good. Hangman Page has improved a lot, and his character is very strong right now. You know, he's definitely defined as a character. Much more than he was when he took on Jericho early on. I think we've seen a number of different dimensions of Hangman Page. So we're sympathetic. We feel for Hangman Page and the role, his drinking, and there's just a lot of humanistic things that go with the character. And with Kenny Omega, you know, the frustration, we feel that as well. And getting to the point now where Kenny Omega just snapped on everybody and just doesn't want to be held back because there's a talk. Well, look, this is the guy from Jamaica. This is the guy from Japan. The big match with Chris Jericho. The real inspiration for a Tony Khan or whoever to say, we're going to do All In with these two guys. Look at how well they had that match at Wrestle Kingdom, 3-4 years ago. And that's where we are. If not for that match and how well it went, where would we have been with this company today? And then the Young Bucks, they've stayed in the background, but now again vying for the tag team titles. But again, they've been having great matches with a lot of different groups. So you put them up against Private Party. You put them up against Penta, Cero Miedo, and Phoenix. Or you put them up against, you know, Best Friends or whatever. Like, there's a lot of great tag teams. But again, the Young Bucks have not wanted to be in the front and center. They've always been prominent. They've been in all the different matches for the tag team title tournament, and they didn't win the tournament. That Private Party upset them. And they'll make the point of, you know, remember, and another thing too with AEW is with all these different feuds and all these different matches and all the things that are going on, they are keeping the records. They've been consistent about that. They've been consistent about, you know, letting you remember back to what happened in a particular storyline and leading you all the way back to it. They're telling stories. They're showing some consistency, and they are trying their best to give you stories that you must keep watching or you will miss something. There's pretty much consistency. Even tonight, watching Dynamite, watching Pac, as we know right now is going to be coming back. I think there's another guy that Pac will be brought back into the fold and will just be, again, strong character. And I'm not really sure why they put him with Penta and Cero Miedo, with the whole, with Penta and Pentagon and Phoenix. I didn't really understand that point. But now you move them off. You have the coalition with Eddie Kingston. And Pac will find himself back into the mix somewhere, somehow. But again, it was the COVID stuff that really kept him away. It's unfortunate. I forget if he was injured as well, but I'm not sure. But either which way, there's just so much left for Pac to do. There's a story to be told about him. The character looks so strong. They were booking him very well beforehand. His feud with Omega was really good. And they're going to just keep working on that. But now FTR, with them, the Best Friend stuff, I'm telling you, I still can't, you know, you go back to that street fight they did, well, fantastic, on television. And they've been building up with the Young Bucks very well. FTR winning the tag team titles off of Omega and Page. And then that storyline goes along with that. And then again, the tie-in with the Young Bucks. And just putting that here, the Young Bucks now also having an edge to them. And now FTR, the alignment with Tully Blanchard. I think all of this is fantastic. The management they have for some of these stars, the veterans are bringing into play. You see Vicky Guerrero with Nyla Rose. You see Arn Anderson with Cody. You see Tully Blanchard with FTR and with Sean Spears. Like, again, Sean Spears is a project. I don't know where they're going to get with him, but they keep trying to retool him to figure out something that'll work. But FTR feels really good right now. Feels really good. Feels like an old school tag team. Feels like what we wanted them to be in WWE as Revival. But again, that was a gimmick. Those guys were not going to fit in WWE so much. That's why they had to go somewhere else. So they're here, and they're now in a very prominent feud. And again, AEW is showing they're the best tag team division right now. Next to Impact Wrestling. I enjoy Impact Wrestling as well in their division as well because they have a lot of strong teams. That 4-way tag that they had at Bound for Glory was quite solid. Just saying. But AEW still takes the cake. That's the best tag team division right now on the television shows that we have. So we'll give it that. Matt Hardy working with Sammy Guevara, we've already talked about. That's a pretty solid mix right there. And Matt Hardy, changing himself, kind of building back up, also accompanying Private Party. It's the veteran rub. We don't get a lot of that these days. And there's something to be said about where the on-camera rules of some people, I mean, we don't even talk much about Murder Hawk, Lance Archer, and Jake Roberts, which also is wonderful. And he's not even part of this pay-per-view. So there's people that come in and out of the mix. It's not a full-time, full exposure type of thing, only for a number of stars. And it's funny how certain stars are able to just come out, and the significance and the value of the matches without a title on the line. Because I'll tell you, I feel there's a lot of value, and there's a whole lot of interest in a match like a Matt Hardy, Sammy Guevara match, and Chris Jericho, MJF. If MJF wins, he can join the Inner Circle. I think all that's really good. I enjoy it a lot. And as for what they're doing, there's other things they're doing where they're trying to just keep things up and interesting, and I can appreciate all that. See, one of the things I could tell you, too, is that there's not a lot said about AEW's Dark program, which they did put a lot of, of the significant lower card of the stars on that show, and they still do now, but there's a lot of young talent they keep putting up there. And it is developmental. Dark is developmental territory right now. AEW is building their young team off of Dark. And all they're doing is, okay, we have our shows. We're just kind of auditioning people. We're bringing people on like a match-for-match basis. And we're just bringing on some that are going to be jobbers, some that are going to be something else. But they're doing it. And they have a lot of indie talent that will come into the ranks. And because of the fact that AEW will go ahead and basically kind of work with anybody, associating with NWA while they don't have their TV show right now, but NWA is trying to continue to do things to keep themselves relevant and keep themselves alive. They're also working on a show that's another organization right now that is a fight TV show. And then NWA is doing some stuff with the women's division only on AEW. And then you look at where Impact Wrestling kind of has a little bit of a nice rapport because Don Callis keeps getting brought in a little bit to go and talk on AEW television, which is really interesting. So Impact, remember, they're not working with each other, but there's at least somewhat of a friendly nod to each organization. And AEW has been good about being friendly with the other promotions that are not WWE. But they're doing the right things to help build themselves up to be something a little more important. That's what you got to think about. It's what they're doing right now to make themselves more significant, more important, more where, they're trying to go and make themselves where they're not pigeonholed and stuck to one way or the other. And that's one of the things that's really interesting about everything else. And that's one of the things that's very important. So my thing is, NXT is what it is, but the thing is with NXT, there might be some good shows out there and other things that they're doing, but I'm just very upset by it. The fact that NXT, I can't watch that too much because I don't want to watch that show with all those stars that feel like they're going to be hitting a brick wall pretty soon as they try to go to the main roster. So I really can't enjoy them just being on this one brand when they're meant to be a developmental territory. NXT should be that because some of those stars are going to make their way up and they're not going to get a chance to get any way booked right. Tommaso Ciampa doesn't want to come up. Finn Balor doesn't want to come up. Shotzi Blackheart or Cameron Grimes or Velveteen Dream or, pick, right? Rhea Ripley. Do you want any of those stars to go make it up to the main roster to fail? Are they going to break through the mold? Ask yourself that question. Do you want to see that? I'd rather watch Dark because I feel like there's some stars they want to give a chance to. So I don't know. Interesting to hear as well with Cody that Cody Rhodes is no longer patented and trademarked by WWE, so now Cody can now use his name again. He's now going to be called Cody Rhodes. And by the way, even when there's certain people that are not going to be on Full Gear, it's still interesting how they're always finding a way to consistently keep things going, right? And they're consistently keeping certain stars that might not be in the mix. They're always keeping them kind of around, so you notice them. Brian Cage, Ricky Starks, accompanied by Taz, not being on the pay-per-view. You still hear them kind of talking things. And again, they find reasons to do everything, so it's been really good. So I'm going to real quickly go ahead and run down the card and give my preview predictions for AEW Full Gear coming up this weekend. Okay, let's start from the bottom. Buy-in, Serena Deeb versus Allison Kay for the NWA Women's Championship. I think Serena Deeb stays on, but Allison Kay now working with AEW. Interesting. And Allison Kay, I'd like to see if AEW wants to do anything with her and take her in a certain direction. So with NWA, I really didn't feel too much about what they were doing with her because it was kind of just her not playing necessarily an interesting face when she was originally a heel and then turning things around when I saw Thunder Rosa and Marty Bell and Melina together combined. Those kind of things were it was. Orange Cassidy will take on number 4 of Dark Order, John Silver. I think Orange Cassidy will have that win. Dark Order, it's still there. I haven't felt much of it. Well, I mean, they did put together, early on some real storytelling to tell what the Dark Order is, but it feels like there's not much to it. It's kind of just been sitting there, and it just feels a bit stale right now. But again, they have all these guys who are working with them to do something, and they have been working on it to go after Cody. So they're playing off of that a little bit, and I can appreciate that. Chris Jericho versus MJF. If MJF wins, he can join the Inner Circle. I like it. I like it a lot. And I'll tell you, MJF has been doing masterful. Like, I like the whole kind of camaraderie here where these two guys are just kind of like at each other's odds. It's good stuff. I think MJF wins. He'll go to the Inner Circle, and there will be a lot of animosity going into that with that group getting together. And MJF will probably take over the Inner Circle. I really do believe that's what happens. And Chris Jericho will turn face. He will not be heel for long. I think Chris Jericho will be outcast from the group for what will happen. Nyla Rose goes after the AEW Women's Champion Hikaru Shida. I think Nyla Rose probably will be due to win the title back. Just to be back once again and strong. That's why I think where things will go. Matt Hardy versus Sammy Guevara and Elite Deletion. I think Sammy Guevara has the win. I think FTR will defeat the Young Bucks for the AEW Tag Team titles. I think Hangman Page. I really think Hangman Page. I think will be. That's gonna be a really good match. They should go long on that match. I think Omega will win that, and that'll be Moxley's next opponent, which they already had a little bit of animosity before, which they could tell a story from. And Cody will take on Darby Allin. And Darby Allin, I love the character as well. That guy, there's a lot of interest in that character. He's definitely a good switch. It is kind of like what NXT would do with a character like that, very moody and very kind of gothic, very like outcast, underground type of character. I like it. I like him a lot. He's good. And he's very daring, man. I'll tell you, that should be a hell of a match they got coming up. I think Darby Allin wins the TNT title. I think he takes it off of Cody. I really do. Over Cody Rhodes, we could call him now, right? Cody Rhodes. And another match with Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley. And again, Eddie Kingston is just solid. Old guard. I like it. I like Eddie Kingston a lot. He's a solid character. And it was funny that WWE actually considered bringing him on board before he went to AEW. Eddie Kingston, man, he's working good. I like what he's been doing right now. It's been kind of very impromptu how they brought him into the mix with Butcher, Blade, and Penta and Phoenix. But they've done it. It's worked. And the Eddie Kingston character has been pretty just scheming the whole time. It's good. And his stuff against Jon Moxley has been fantastic. But Eddie Kingston, just good promo. Keep him talking. A lot of good talkers on this brand. Taz, good talker. I mean, just a lot of good talkers anyway. Promos are king here at this company. So many good promo cutters right now. Look at that. Moxley's not bad. You know, he fits the role right now. He's doing better promos than he ever did. Eddie Kingston is so solid. Cody is very good. He's good impassioned. He's got a little bit of a dusty in him. When I look at Matt Hardy, obviously, I like what Sammy Guevara does, what they were working him. Chris Jericho, MJF, you're just working with some stars right there. Masterful promo cutters. All the managers from Vicky Guerrero to Jake Roberts to Tully Blanchard to Arn Anderson. Jesus, man, you can't do much better than that. That's just solid. John Moxley will defeat Eddie Kingston this weekend, I think. That's where we're going to be at that. We also haven't talked about Miro too much. And there's going to be some things that are going to go on with him that'll be moving forward that, you know, they're trying to build off him, but there's just so much work to get on him anyway. So he's out there too, and we're learning about him. We'll see where everything goes. One of the note we're noticing, Leo Rush is going to be joining MLW's The Restart. And by the way, the Restart's coming up pretty soon, and MLW will be coming back. I'm going to keep an eye on that. I haven't read too much about what there's going to be happening yet, but the return of MLW will be on Wednesday nights, November 18th, 7 p.m., and that'll be with Fusion returning to Fubo Sports and YouTube. So finally, we will get back to MLW. That's going to be great. I can't wait for that to come back. That's going to be good stuff. So again, we'll keep an eye on that. That'll be nice to bring that back to the mix in a couple of weeks. We'll talk about that. EC3 out of Impact Wrestling for right now. He's finished with the Impact Wrestling right now. Just worked a short time of the promotion. And there was some talk that he'll be working with Ring of Honor to the end of the year. But no word if he has a contract with either company. But it was stated that both have been talking about creating a new project separate from both companies. So that's where he is right now. And Ring of Honor is already airing videos where he's going to be coming in pretty soon. So we'll keep it there. And we're going to keep it WWE free tonight. We're going to just leave it like that. There's not much more to be said. We're going to go and come back this Saturday with a full gear post show. Go and look for that right here at WrestlingIsReal.com. And we'll leave it there. And by the way, I do want to give you the reminder that coming up, because we're getting towards the end of the year, probably in about 2 weeks, I think I want to go ahead and start it early. We're going to start doing the year in review of what we're able to go and talk about when it comes to the promotions and what's happening this year. So we're going to take some time to do some reviewing of the year in wrestling. We're going to start doing that pretty early. We're going to start that up probably right before Thanksgiving. I want to start doing it probably like 5 weeks ahead. So let's just do that. In about 3 weeks, we'll start doing the 2020 year in review, which has been crazy this year. We'll talk all about that coming up. So if we didn't stop, we won't stop when it comes to the show and putting everything else all together. So short show tonight. Hope you enjoy it. Come back this Saturday for the post show of Full Gear right here on another Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast, brought to you by KingofAmazon.com. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and on Facebook at Wrestling is Real. Subscribe to the Wrestling is Real podcast through all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. You can also look for episodes on his YouTube channel, youtube.com/JBRASCO951. You can find all this information and more by going to the website, WrestlingIsReal.com.